Hey y'all, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is Bodice Tipplers,
the podcast where we read all the books we used to steal off our grandmother's nightstands.
And then we drink about it.
On this episode, we read Merrick by Anne Rice. It has all of the usual Anne Rice content warnings, but additionally, it has a white lady from New Orleans trying to write about racism and colorism. It has some disturbing age gap business that's got feet involved. It's got perfume mismanagement or possibly perfume crimes. It's got, what am I missing?
Well, I feel like that the age thing is always an Anne Rice thing. That's like her, we're
it's
always
real big in this
with,
one, though.
Bigger than sex slave little baby Armand.
Oh well, I was into that. That's different. I was into that.
Oh, okay, all right. So yeah, I
kind of forgot about Armand.
Nobody's head gets cut off in this one and sewn onto a body of another vampire.
That's true.
I mean, we're kind of, we're going up, in that
We're going
way.
Up.
But we have vampires are going to vamp. We've got weird depictions of the Central American jungle. Obvious,
Oh, what did I say earlier? Non-consensual hexing. Non-consensual ensorcelment.
It's got sexual abuse.
There we go.
So it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be an Anne Rice joint. Welcome to our 18th annual Anne Rice-a-thon.
I don't even know.
If you have not joined us before, we skipped interview with a vampire because we didn't want to read a book about Louis. So here we fucking are. And we skipped Memnoch the Devil because we didn't want to read Memnoch the Devil. And then it turned out that the next book just summarized that fucking book for us. So we've read all the other ones up to this point, and now we are on Merrick. And this is supposed to be a crossover with the Mayfair Witches, but it is not. Joining us, it's me and Courtney as usual, but we also have special guests that we have for every time that we do this. We have special guest Claire, who is, by the way, a Mayfair Witches expert.
Oh, goodness.
Claire, why don't you introduce yourself and pull out your bona fides?
What are my bona fides? I'm Claire. I am a writing instructor in Mississippi at the university. I did a lot of work with Faulkner and gender, and now I just like to read trash.
Well, I think that your Faulkner experience is why you like this book better than I did, because this book was boring as fuck. So,
see, we're gonna have lively discourse because Sarah is outnumbered on this one. It's gonna be a fun little battle. Yeah. Because Sarah, in true Lestat fashion, no one's opinion counts but hers. So this one, Merrick came out in 2000. Again, Anne Rice. If you haven't done one of these by now, just go listen to one of our other ones because I'm not talking about Anne Rice anymore. But this is the 7th in her Vampire Chronicles. And again, it does have a minor crossover with the Lives of the Mayfair Witches. I think that one of the characters who is basically dead in this one has a lot to do with that. But here's a brief little summary, and the summary is kind of hilarious because it's not true. Louis de Lac is being haunted by the spirit of Claudia, a child who, like Louis, had been turned into a vampire by Lestat de Liancourt, but was destroyed long ago. With the help of former Talamasca leader turned vampire David Talbot, Louis asks the beautiful witch Merrick Mayfair to use her spiritual powers to contact Claudia's ghost. Louis wishes he was being haunted by Claudia. That's the whole
Yeah, that's the thing. She is specifically haunting everybody but him.
Right. He's upset about it.
It's the point now where your ex has fucked all of your friends. Yeah.
Exactly.
The ones that are not their preferred gender.
Won't text you back. No matter what. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just a quick little recap. David Talbot, who was but David Talbot was an old, boring English guy who worked for the Talamasca, which was basically like the Scooby Gang and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They look into all the le mystery, as they call it, but made bureaucracy out of it.
Yeah, it's
because they were
watchers from Buffy the Vampire. It's like the people who are like, oh, you're going to go work at McDonald's now because you didn't do what we said, even though you're the only person who can do this job. Like, it's those people. It's like those absolute assholes.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Courtney.
Oh, but okay, yeah, just to catch up. So David was previously body snatched, body switched.
Body snatched because he's hot now.
He's no longer an old staid British gentleman, but now he is a young hot man. But he is also a vampire and became a vampire, as one does often, against his own wishes, because Lestat does what the fuck Lestat wants. So Lestat, after his Memnock with the devil ordeal, has just been laying around, like literally just laying around, astral planing, whatever. So he is currently in that state. We've got Louis and David hanging out together the three of them live, quote unquote, in a home in their home in New Orleans, where David and Louis just kind of lurk around, and Lestat is looking up at the ceiling like an angsty teenager. But he is just kind of there, but not there.
He is literally gathering dust. Like,
he spends a lot of time in that abandoned convent. He's not even in the.
He does get up and walk around sometimes, but like I do when I don't want to, and it's a weekend that I don't have anything to do on. Sometimes I get up and then I go back.
Yes, but he's not really talking. He's not doing it. Yeah, he is a non-entity.
So let me. So when this book starts out, it's like, hey, yo, here, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm David Talbot, and this is when I started to hate this book. It was word 4. David Talbot is nobody's fucking favorite character in this. Feel free to add me if you're the guy. If you're like the David Talbot super fan, please.
Here's the thing: no, he's not the favorite guy, but at least again, we'll get into it. We'll jump in. Yeah. Go ahead. Continue with your summary.
Sorry. We could argue about what you have to first understand about this book is that almost none of this book is actually happening in the book. The vast majority of this book is like Homer's Odyssey being related through like 4 different framing devices where somebody's explaining something. Most of it is David talking to Louis, the boringest dinner party I can possibly imagine attending. Okay. Imagine you show up and it's those two motherfuckers. You'd be like, oh, absolutely not. On the period. Gotta go. I mean, like, seriously, Jesus fuck. But
so basically what happens is that Claudia's little ass is haunting everyone but Louis. She's like, oh, you get some harpsichord. You get some harpsichord. Louis, you don't get the harpsichord. And he's like, hey, David, what would be cool is if we could get somebody to make Claudia come and talk to me. Because, he's that guy. He's like, oh, he doesn't get the hint. So
if only I could talk to her, we could work this out, right? Like, he's like that ex. Yeah. He's the ex. Like, I just haven't explained this correctly, right? Like, I haven't.
David is like, no problem. I know a girl.
Oh, wait, Courtney. First, we should explain. Say you have come into this completely. You haven't seen the show. You don't know the books whatsoever. Claudia was the little girl abomination vampire that Louis and Lestat decided they were going to be dads to in Interview with the Vampire, and then we saw it again in The Vampire Lestat. So she was put to death by it's not really a vampire council, but let's say the vampire council as a
by Armand. By Armand's group, and then Armand in the Vampire Armand, we find out was like, oh, my bad. Let me take her head off and try to put it on another vampire's body.
I forgot all about that, man.
That lives in my head. So
I really like that book. I like that book a lot.
Did Lestat or Louis make Claudia? Wasn't it Louis?
I don't remember.
Lestat made her. So what happened?
But Louis almost trained her. What?
Right, and she would suck if Louis made her because Louis the piece of shit.
Oh, that's right. He was
Louis is the only weak vampire. Right. Yeah, like Louis is the only
even though Lestat
who can't do anything.
Figure.
Yeah.
Lestat made her. And then she dies she dies later by the Theater de Vampire.
In Paris.
And then again, it's a my bad. Let me try to make it right by taking your head and putting it on this grown woman's body. So I got this little tiny baby head and I put it on a grown ass vampire woman's body. And he's like, whoops, that didn't work. Like, where's that book? Where's that book of mad scientist Armand? I still want to.
That is awesome.
Anyway.
Instead of people feeling sorry for themselves, people just being like, I got a saw. You know, I guess that's what we do in the shadows.
Nobody felt sorrier for themselves than Armand. See, we're at like minute 10 and we're already in the weeds. Anyway, so David is like, I got somebody for you. And he's like, let me tell you about this chick named Merrick. And so obviously we have the Anne Rice special, which is flashbacks on flashbacks. So Merrick is she's with, as an adult, she works for the Talamasca, and she is a very, very powerful witch that originally hails from New Orleans. She comes from a long line of witches. She is part of the Black Mayfairs. There are the White Mayfairs. We're going to unpack that much later because it's a lot of unpacking. But for the sake of getting through this story, we're going to move on. So David goes and meets with her. She does a little, you find out they have history, and she does a little bit of her light hexing on him. And when he gets back to the house, he's like, well, Louis, I talked to my contact, but let me tell you a story first. Because in true Anne Rice fashion, we have to have 200 pages of a story before the 15 minutes of action can occur. So
nothing happens in this book until the 3/4 mark, okay?
See?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. So we flash back to 20, 30 some odd years ago. I guess 20. Because I feel like Merrick is now in her
she's actually 10 or something when he first meets her, but then she's 14 when most of this stuff happens when her grandmother died.
Right, but I'm saying as she is an adult now, but I want to say that she's 30.
I feel she's 20. I thought she was late 30s. I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter. I felt like she was more around 40, but that was just
oh no, I thought she was actually younger than that. I thought
okay. She's younger.
No, because when they have their second go round, she's 24, 25.
Okay.
You mean in Guatemala?
And yeah. She's in Guatemalan years. She's 24, 25.
I meant in the country of Guatemala. Okay, let's say that she's in her 30s. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, late. Yeah, she's a grown ass person for parts of it not. So we start with David is still with the Talamasca, and he's still an old white guy at this point. He has not been body swapped into a young Asian man yet. And he's hanging out with this guy, Aaron, who I think is part of the Mayfair story. So I think Aaron has
I was
a little bit more to do with the Mayfairs.
That's part of the big crossover. It's not even the Mayfairs. It's that Aaron Leitner is the David Talbot of the witch books, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because we needed more David Talbots in
right.
our lives.
He's equally as annoying as someone who has read all the witch books.
So we roll up, these two guys go rolling up into, to New Orleans to talk to, I don't even know how they initially meet her, but I think it doesn't matter. So they go and
they're watching all the Mayfairs.
Yeah, but Nan sent her to them because she wanted her to be taken care of.
Right.
Yeah, because
so
she was dying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because she knew her death date. So we have
who I would absolutely appoint as my child's guardian is the Talamasca.
Okay.
And the horny old man.
Joke's on you, Courtney. It's you.
When they first. Anyway, I'm trying to keep us on some kind of track. So our first major interaction between David and Merrick is when she is 14 years old. And she is like no other 14-year-old that you have ever met. She's coming down the stairs like Maggie the cat in a cat. She's like Elizabeth Taylor coming down in like a white slip of a dress that is all I talk like no one you have ever heard. And I'm dealing with a 16-year-old. And if my child said any of the things or was self-contained like this girl would be, I would just fall over dead. But so she is obviously very powerful witch lineage. The first thing that she does is she's also, here's the thing, Merrick is doing all the heavy lifting in this book because not only is she a witch and not only is she ensorceling left and right, bringing back ghosts, doing archaeological digs. She is also having to be the person that brings up all the context and backstory. She is having to explain stuff. So she's like, look at all my collection of daguerreotypes. Here you go. Like, ooh, we're good today. Daguerreotypes. It's like, this is my family. We're going to go through the lineage because if you haven't read the Mayfair books, you need to know who all these people are. So she's like, here's so-and-so, here's so-and-so. Someone hand me a glass of rum. She is 14. And they're like, you're the most enticing young woman we've ever seen. Very creepy. So,
the only Mayfair that she actually mentions is Julian, Uncle Julian, who is like he's like a big dog, but that's like the only one she even mentioned. Like I can't even remember the lineage. Like he's like her grandfather, her great grandfather, or something. Like I can't even remember what it is.
She is a little fuzzy on a lot of this. Like, well, he's kind of my uncle and kind of not. And I mean, I guess people have those, right?
Yeah, especially in the Mayfair family.
Half drunk.
And she is she is a voodoo priestess.
She's half drunk all the time.
Oh yeah, she is half drunk all the time. No, she is a voodoo priestess, and I mean, okay, I certainly do not have like the background here, but it does seem like to be like researched, right? So so it's not just that she's a witch, it's that like this is all tied very much into a religious aspect.
They're there because her great aunt Nanon is dying, and so like all of the things are being made to like provide and care for Merrick upon her death. And during this, you find out about her mother, who was inexplicably who was named Cold Sandra. And her sister, who is named Honey in the Sunshine.
But they don't bother to tell you that's who these people are, even though this would be the natural time to explain who these people are. They make it super fucking mysterious.
Yeah, it's like 2 chapters later when you figure out who those 2 people are, or she talks about her relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta start calling my mom some name, like, you know, like calls me every time when I'm alone and really looking forward to like reading a book by myself, Geraldine.
So Aunt Nanon passes away. It's very sad. I did enjoy, I felt like it was very that part when the girl's like holding her shit together and then finally like does break down like a little girl. And they're like, well, come on, we're taking you to London. Yeah, they're like, here we go, we're going. And you find out again a lot about like a lot of this is describing, we talked about the religious aspects, Catholicism among Black, New Orleans and, Black Louisianans and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of description for not a lot happening. Anyway, these two dudes.
Okay, so what do you need in your new room? And she's like, I need some hot shoes. I need some hella stank ass perfume. I'm obviously gonna need an entire cellar's worth of rum and some cigars. And they're all
don't forget the suitcase that she gets out of the attic that has all the like priceless Mayan relics.
You got like all these like sort of Olmec, sort of not.
Or they call it Olmec, but they're like, it's not. It's too old to be Olmec.
Yeah.
Or like
it's Olmec, but it's not Olmec.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's one of those chariots of the gods things. Have y'all encountered that? Like the idea that like the Olmecs, what's supposed to be Olmec statues are actually like aliens, like a charity of the god thing, and they represent like African people who I guess were alien friends, or there's like a whole bunch of like weird conspiracy shit about Olmec statues. So I'm assuming that's what that was.
A lot of this was dealing with like Old Testament, like, hey, I got this book that Ham wrote.
Oh yeah, Ham.
Ooh,
weird that Ham comes up, but they don't talk about the curse of Ham. That was like seriously, you gotta bring up Ham, but not bring up Ham.
Again. That'll be for
Sorry. Okay. Pretend like I didn't say that. I forgot about that until you said that.
They hustle her off to the Talmasca headquarters in New Orleans because they're like Scientology. They got an office in every big.
Well, they didn't even have a mother house there until like they built one to house Merrick. Essentially, it's like you building a museum because you like acquired a Da Vinci, right? Like, you had to build a museum around her.
So they get her there and they've got her kind of settled in, and then she has a nightmare. They give her rum, which she wanted, and then she wakes up and she is someone completely different. And she's like talking to David, and he's like, "You're Cold Sandra, aren't you?" And she's like, "Wrong." He's like, "You're Honey in the Sunshine." And we're like, "Who the hell is this?" Find out Honey in the Sunshine is Merrick's older sister, and her mother was Cold Sandra. Now, Cold Sandra was a hot piece and was running around with some archaeologist that we don't really understand how this woman who was just carousing in New Orleans was like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with this archaeologist and we're all going to go on a family trip to Guatemala. That doesn't matter. Anyway, that guy dies mysteriously. He leaves all his money to Cold Sandra. She's like, I'm buying a white suit and a Chevy, and she pieces out. Don't know what happens to her until this moment when all of a sudden Merrick has been possessed by Honey in the Sunshine. And she's like, I'm going to kick her ass. And David's like, the hell you will. So he like starts scrapping with a 14-year-old to keep her from like stepping on glass.
Who's possessed?
Also, like, it's also super sexualized, which, I mean, possessions are.
Oh, we talked about her nipples
like,
way too much.
And it was all like, I know you would both, okay, I remember this phrase. You would like to tack me to these mattresses. Like, excuse me?
Yeah.
So,
he's always talking about her petticoat. Her petticoat and what her nipples are doing in it. I'm like, bro, okay.
I get
it. Child.
Which is weird because it's a female author. Although Anne Rice does understand that a shirt dress is hot. And so she wears many shirt dresses and I can see them and they are fantastic. No notes.
So, yeah, but we'll get to this. So they're scrapping. Aaron's like, could you dial it back a little bit? And he's like, no, I gotta. So he spiritually, he like pulls, he's like, I'm gonna fight this possession with my own self, like soul. So he has a soul battle and he wins. And, you know, from then on, he's like, I got you, Merrick. Anyway, so this is David.
Courtney, before you go on, some things that the dead people knew about
David's young boyfriend was like, I want to go climb this mountain and find some creepy shit. And David's like, this isn't a good idea. And the young boyfriend was like, I'm gonna do it. And he's like, I can't stop you. And he dies. And the Honey in the Sunshine is like, it's your fault. And David's like, I know it's not, because I'm an old white British man and nothing is ever my fault.
I mean, like the spirits are making the point, like, we have noticed, by the way, good sir, that while your previous boyfriends have been technically legal, they have been extraordinarily young, have they not, good sir? And he's like, well, yeah, kind of. And like, you're not into women, but if they're young enough, you are. And I was like, shut the front door.
She said something like she's still got the boy on her. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Like she's young enough.
Yes. And I was like, fuck.
I mean, you know, like that's some Armand business right there too.
Yeah, well, okay, but it was hot when it was Armand again.
Anyway, so
it was a viewpoint character.
We go to where we're going to, like, David is relating all of this to Louis, and he's like, well, I want you to know all about her before we go, you know, so you know what we're going into when we ask her to do this thing. And Louis is like, tell me more. And David's like, oh, don't worry, I'll tell you plenty. So we go to another set of flashbacks. And in this flashback, Merrick is now 24 and she's running around like Egypt. She is giving herself a whore bath every day in Chanel 22. Like,
we
all the
decided
people
this is not eau de toilette. This is eau de parfum. You can smell this bitch coming 16 blocks away. This is a certified biohazard.
She is just drinking nothing but rum. Like, even after the Talamasca built her like a whole home base in, you know, New Orleans, and she's like, nah, I'm gonna live in my old house. And David, as a very white man, is like, are you gonna feel safe there?
Yeah, he's like, this is a bad neighborhood, by which he means black people live here. Like that's literally what he means. I mean, I've been to New Orleans.
She's like, bitch, I'm the voodoo priestess in New Orleans. I'm like safest houses. So she is looking into all of this like ephemera that was given to her, you know, one by, you know, Uncle Julian, and also from Matthew, who was kind of her unofficial stepfather. He was the one running around with Cold Sandra and had gone on this expedition to Guatemala where he took all the, you know, because you know what everybody like brings everybody together as a family is taking a bunch of young ass kids into the jungles to go looking up like cursed ruins and stuff.
I might have dragged my whole family into the jungles of Panama recently, and I was not.
Sarah, you took a curated guided tour.
I didn't take a guided tour. I took them to it was a park, but I mean, like, it was in the jungle, and they were ready to murder me. They were like, absolutely, they would have left me there.
This was unexplored, like uncontacted tribe.
Well, like things not on maps and stuff. Like they're
they couldn't even figure out what country it was in.
And like the inexplicable thing was then like they took this child Merrick with them, and then they say something like she just ran around the jungle while they like did the stuff. Like why did she even have to go? I don't know. I don't understand.
Just because Anne Rice loves a jungle church, man. Like, she loves a jungle church. I don't know why. She just got to think.
She does.
So we find out, again, when the possession happened, way back when Merrick was still 14, we find out that, again, she now knows what happened to her mother and her sister, and that after Matthew, the archaeologist, died, he left all this money, gave it to Sandra. Sandra's like, well, I'm taking the 16-year-old because she can take care of herself. Merrick, I'll be back for you later. They don't even get out of New Orleans. Again, this seasoned ass witch doesn't even make it out of the city. She stops, talks to some guy to buy like an Oldsmobile, and he murders them, and they crash in a swamp. Like he has them, like he crashes the car.
He takes the money and he puts them in the trunk of the car and he shoves the car into the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna tell me she's a witch? Forget the witch shit. Just assume that this is a woman who has grown up on the wrong side of the tracks in New Orleans, and she goes to buy a car with cash money, and she lets somebody get the drop on her. She doesn't go strapped.
So
no, absolutely not. Important. Cold Sandra? No.
It's not Anne's best creative work, to be honest. Like, it's not her best idea.
But this becomes important later. So when Merrick is 24, David comes to see her, and she's like, hey, I want to go run around the jungles of Guatemala and see what they were looking for. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll go too. So they go run around the jungles of Guatemala, and they discover basically what they thought had been a cave was this like built tunnel, this man-made created tunnel that went into this sacred native burial ground, And
okay, did y'all get the impression that this had anything to do with, you remember how in like Queen of the Damned and all that stuff that was about Mischker and like the original vampire twins, and there was evidence of them on all the different continents, and some of them were in like jungles in Central and South America. Did y'all get the impression that was related, or like this is all? It seemed like it came out of nowhere and it had no relevance.
Yeah,
and I was like, is that the same thing?
I did. So I felt like, if I'm remembering, which I'm not. Let's just say like if I remember correctly, from Queen of the Damned. But I feel like when they were doing that, the twins, that they were running around trying to discover more about like their origins and like more about like other vampires. And so I feel like, I don't know, I think you can connect those dots. Like either they had something to do with this tomb in the jungle behind a waterfall, or they at least maybe cross paths with those people, if that makes sense. Like maybe Anne's just trying to like connect dots there.
There's no, there's no... I mean, okay, I guess that is real life, right? That you find a whack-ass thing behind a waterfall in a video game. I'm sorry, in the jungle. And you just don't know where it came from, right? Like, it doesn't come with lore attached.
No, yes. This is not,
in these books, it feels like it should come with lore attached. Like, what the fuck is this
that's the whole point.
She'll explain things 500 times the same way. Like, the thing that gets me is, like, she'll talk about somebody, but like Michael, the archaeologist. Every time she brings him up, she's like, Michael, the archaeologist.
No, Matthew.
I'm like, bitch, we know. But
anyway.
Yes, but it's like, we know. We already know. You've told us. We know what he does.
You're going to be utterly silent about this. These people who made a mask that can see the dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think she's always thinking ahead.
These people knew they were there.
I think she's always thinking ahead. I think Anne Rice had already written that book, like, 10 years later in the future. She's like, ooh, that's a story. And then she just never got to.
Hold on.
The next couple books I have literally never heard of. I mean, I'm a fucking reader's advisory librarian. I must have literally seen them on the shelf, but I do not remember the titles of these books. So maybe that's all what they're about. I don't know. I have no clue. Before we get to
happened?
Princess not going to Atlantis, we had to go through these things.
So what happens is that she's like, okay, I want to go check out where they were because I was too young to remember it. But she's like, so I got to call up old Honey in the Sunshine. And, our guy's like, that's a bad idea. She's like, nah, I'm going to do it. And so Honey in the Sunshine leads her to this, again, they desecrate the shit out of this grave.
It no longer has any archaeological value whatsoever. The provenance is gone,
But it's, again, this amazing mask, and you put it on and it shows you the souls around you. And she's like, oh, Honey in the Sunshine wanted me to find this so I could see her. And I was like, well, yeah, obviously. So this is their last, and they have, when they're there, David gets very, as they're going through this tunnel, they're getting spiritually punched in the face and the stomach. The spirits are trying to be like, hey, how about you not desecrate the sacred, burial
you
ground?
Think that they're demons? So remember that there were those demons that became the vampire animating thing back in the prehistoric Menkare whatever twins.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that. And then part of me is like, wait a minute, did Anne Rice want to expense a trip to Guatemala?
You skipped didn't before they went in the tunnel, isn't that when Merrick and David did the nasty in the tent, when he was 30 years older than her or something?
They did.
And he had raised her like a daughter.
Yeah, you're entirely right. Yes, before they actually go and get the money shot of in the jungle, they go and get the money shot in the tent, which is quite frankly about it later. But in these books, generally nobody has sex. So
I know. I thought about that. Look, people actually having sex. Look at that. Here we go.
Yeah, but you were forced to contemplate his I'm assuming he had those explorer socks pulled all the way up. I'm thinking we got a pith helmet situation.
Again, he was dressed like a cartoon character. Yeah. The socks, the hat, the little jacket,
yes, with the pockets. Yes, he is wearing the full British kit. I am actually imagining a much older what's his face from Magnum PI throughout.
Yes, he's Higgins. He's dressed like Higgins. Less sexy Higgins.
More so. And he's in his late 70s, I believe. And that's an 80s, late 70s, not a modern late 70s.
Well, no. He was in his 50s.
He wasn't sure if he could do it.
No. He wasn't completely, he wasn't De Niro old yet. He's
hey, De Niro just had a kid.
Probably At this point, he was DiCaprio old. He was 50s because because it was another 20 years.
No, he's
another
older
15
than that
years
because he keeps talking about he's really not sure if he can get it up. And I mean, that's not 50. Okay.
No, what he says is that he's like, I curse that we're hanging out and I'm still young enough to want to do it.
But he's a 70 way. I mean, he's not 50. People who are 50 are just, they're just a little slower.
He was not the old man that he was when he met Lestat. Because this is pre-Lestat. He was, we can be in the weeds about this all we want. I just read it more recently than you. I'm telling you, he was not old balls yet. There's plenty of time for David Talbot to be old balls, Sarah. You got plenty of it, all right? But he is not completely old and gross and decrepit. He is old enough to be upsetting in the jungle, but like not, he still was able to move around in the jungle. Like it wasn't some 70-year-old man like like he was still like able
that
to
is
move.
the impression it gives. I mean, I don't want to have to go back and read that again, but like he was
so
very pleased with himself.
because yeah, I mean, have you met a middle-aged man? They're always pleased with themselves. Come on. But what I'm saying is that like we have 4 different timelines. Jesus Christ. Anyway, he is not the completely old man that he is when he meets Lestat. He is able to do things. Again, he says, curse being young enough for my dick to work.
I mean, he is old. He is young enough to climb a waterfall, which, I mean, I gotta say, I could probably not do myself.
I'm saying, he is still old enough for it to be upsetting because, again, she is a good...
Well, because he's like 40 years older than her. Yeah, like 30 or 40 years older.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And he raised her. He says he was like a daughter. Yeah, he says.
Yes, I am not taking. I am okay. Yeah, I am not taking or away or negating from the grossness. I am just saying that he is not jitterbug age traipsing through the jungle. So
yeah, but when they come out of there, they are kind of fleeing these little bitey dead people. Like so, it's kind of
and homeboy
gets really want to take. Like, but they do take this mask, which is the big thing. Like, they get to the center of the
They only take the mask. They're like, we'll send the archaeological team later. But as soon as they get out,
Merrick's interns to get bit by demons. Like, so
they
sorry, Chad. You know,
immediately as soon as they leave the cave, Merrick is like, or not Merrick. David is like, I'm dying.
I don't feel good. This is what happened to Matthew too, because only if you're like a white dude who's creeping on some of these bitches, do you have the specific disease, which they try to say is because of a frog. No. There's no fucking way. The way that this is described, it is not a frog. It is some kind of supernatural whatever. But you're like, frog?
It's the spooky flu.
It's so strange. I mean, it is written so weird. It is bizarre.
Yes, but it was like, and that could have been really interesting because it was like we're in the jungle. Yeah. Like it's all, yeah. She's like, I got to go to church, and he's like, why do you go to the church? She's like, because I do. Leave me alone.
Well, the church is weird too because you thought it was going to come up more because they were like, well, go in the front door unless you like make your obeisance to the right thing. And he's like, okay, I won't do that. I respect this shit. So he goes in the side door and there's like a priest there and it's kind of unclear what sort of priest there. And you're like, okay, well, this is going to be important later. Reader, it is not.
It is not important at all.
It is not. It is never important again. And like the whole
and remember though, she puts the mask on when David is sick and she says she sees his his spirit hovering, trying to leave his body because the mask lets you see spirits. Yeah.
Yeah, because
he was trying to die.
The frog.
Because the frog, he was trying to die.
She's like,
I mean, like Matthew died, even though he made it back to like New Orleans General Hospital. Okay, like.
Yeah, but Matthew, I mean, his lady friend, she got herself up and killed by a guy with a Chevy.
Yeah, you got to get a tougher bitch. You got to get like that bad bitch to like defend you against evil spirits because like obviously like Matthew didn't have anybody who was that into it, right? Fair enough. Like you got to really have somebody who's down bad for you. I think that's
So, David is relating all of this, and he's like, and then I got better, and then, she fucked off to Egypt, and it was like, thanks for the bacon, I'll see you later. And he's like, and then, Lestat, I met Lestat, and then he turned, when I became a young, hot Asian man, he was like, well, now it's time to vampire you, and he's like, I didn't want it, but that's how we're here. And Louis like, interesting.
This has had to have taken like a month of fucking evenings with Louis. I mean, to go through this fucking story. And I mean, I guess that's the thing about being a vampire is that you have all the time in the world, right?
Yeah.
They don't
all the books I want to read. I guess I'm reading them now, right? But
they're not watching TV.
Jesus.
Don't forget the ancient South American spirit that David saw while he was ill the whole time that no one else saw. The man with the narrow face, isn't that how he was described?
Yeah. And it seems like a priest or something.
Yeah, I don't know. He was just
And
there.
then he saw him in New Orleans too.
And then he saw him when Lestat changed him. That was what he said. That was the only other time. And the guy kind of cursed him. Anyway, it's madness. The more we talk about it, the more the book unravels.
But it was
Actually, this makes me, having read this book, I did not want to read the book after this. But now that we're talking about it, I really do want to read the book.
Oh my God, I have to.
Like, maybe this is going to be, maybe it's not going to explain it, y'all, is it?
No, it's not going to explain anything.
You know, but I really want to, maybe it will. I don't know.
So,
I guess that's next year.
You do this to me. I can't wait. You know how many years it's going to be before we get to Prince Lestat goes to Atlantis?
Oh, I hope it's soon.
Well, not too many because she didn't die. I mean, this was 2000, and
there's like
when did
4.
she die?
And okay, so we didn't read Pandora, even though technically it came in between because in the official numbering, that's the Tales of the New Vampires or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of wanted to read Pandora.
The next book is about Marius. I read that. The next book is about Marius.
I do like
his whole history. I do too. So
y'all remember when
we're already thinking ahead. We're like, forget this book.
Yeah, like he fell into the ocean and got hot. Well, that would happen to you. Like, if you couldn't die, think about all the things that kill people. But like, if you didn't die, you would just be stuck there. Well, that happens, I guess, right? Like, the guy in the cave who got stuck face down in that cave, like, he'd still be there if he was a vampire.
I mean, it's kind of like the knight from Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Been sitting in that room.
Protecting the Holy Grail.
And he's like, "Oh, is it happening?" And it's like just like rats or whatever. Is it? I got a riddle. My riddle's so good now, you guys. My riddle's amazing.
He's like, he's trying to clap. He's like ready. He's been practicing that clap on 3 for a millennia. So,
oh my God,
we're now in. He's gotten Louis up to speed, and he's like, "So, just so you know, Louis,
to the speed Louis goes at."
He's like, just so you know, she's a little bit crafty. And Louis like, I think I met her once. And she gave me definite fuck off vibes. So he's like, so I'm into it. And he's like, all right. So they have a big group meeting. They have a team meeting, and Louis basically, here's the thing about Louis, is that Louis is going to Louis. And he's like, okay, so I want you to conjure up Claudia's ghost so she can tell me it's okay for me to kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all like, do it. Now, please understand.
I do not need her permission.
Here's the best part of it is that anyway, we'll get to it. We'll get to it because this is where it becomes...
You froze up. Let me say for one moment that if you are considering harming yourself, you should absolutely seek help. There's many hotlines. Reach out to your friends. We're not talking about people here. We're talking about Louis here.
As Sarah has, reminded us all that these are vampires. So he wants the permission because, again, from Armand, I think it was the vampire Armand, or it was Queen of the Damned. I don't know. When that girl Jess showed up and then she's never been in anything else.
Queen of the Damned.
I don't know.
Queen of the Damned. Yeah.
She went to go investigate the apartment that they all had lived in together, Louis, Lestat, and Claudia, and she experiences a haunting. And that is where she finds in a secret compartment some of Claudia's belongings, and she takes them to the Talamasca. So our girl Merrick is like, all right, I'll do this for you, but here's the thing. I got to go get that stuff. She's like, I'm going to go get it because we need it, And Louis is like, but do we have to look at her things? Like, yes, Louis, you fucking look. Yes, obviously we need her stuff.
That's how this shit goes, Louis. You had to... God damn it, Louis.
So they have...
I like how he thinks it's so easy to recall someone who's been dead for however many decades, who's wasn't even a human. The metaphysics of it is really complicated.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's how do we find this vampire spirit?
Also, what are you getting? Because, like I said, as we remember for Armand, he didn't just let her die. He cut her head off and sewed it onto a grown-ass vampire's body. Who knows what happened to that poor vampire? Run around with no head. So what do you
Threw her
get?
in a fire, as I recall. Actually, he did say. That was so fucking wild. I was reading that shit at Disney and I was like, yes, give me more.
What an unhinged asshole. So
I love our
we
mom
love it. He's
so much.
You know what? I want it. Yeah. So, okay. So they have their big team meeting. They have the team meeting, and she's like, look, we're going to do this. It's going to go the way that I say that it goes. This is how it's going to be. You know, and they have it. And when they get back from the meeting, Louis is like, well, she is just great. And David's like, I know.
Well, because
So
like Louis is very susceptible to a personality, like a real personality. Like Louis is like a moth, you know? And so like Lestat obviously just completely short-circuited Louis for a century or more.
Yes. So he's like, so let's just keep that in our pocket. And Louis is like, yes, this is the real one. All right. So a few days go by and she's like, all right, it's time to do it. We're doing this. And so they all get together and she's like, all right, here are the things that I have. I need you to go through these, handle them. And she's like, here's a diary. It's got 3 entries. She's like, and he's like, I gave her this book. And she's, you know, and it's like, one is about when they went to go see Macbeth. One is just something other nonsense. And she's like, before we do this, I want you to read this one entry. And Louis is like, but I don't want to read it. She's like, read it. And it is wild because Claudia's such a little cunt. She's such a little like power.
This is when this book got
really
good,
is.
all right? I gotta say.
This is my favorite.
Oh my God. This was like, fuck your bitch ass. Yes.
So what she does is she is like in this, she's like, Louis gave me this. I'm going to try to keep some notes. She's like, my plan is this. She's like, I'm going to have to kill one of them to make the other my slave. So I know that Louis is the weaker of the two. They're both idiots, but he is the weaker of the two, and that we're gonna have to kill Lestat so that Louis then will completely be in my bidding. She's like, what's so funny about Louis? Ha ha ha! Is that Louis thinks that I love him? She's like, Louis is a punk ass bitch, and here's the thing: I hate him more than I hate Lestat. Like Lestat, at least is kind of cool.
Yeah,
like,
you had to respect Lestat in some way, right?
And so, like, and she's like, but Louis is just a little bitch, but I can make him completely my bitch. And she's like, I'm going to have one of them to be my slave because I can't go around because I'm 6 years old in the face. But I'm a asshole. Like, I'm an old queen. What I am, even though I have a 6-year-old face, I am the pinnacle moment of like Sunset Boulevard in my head, in my heart. And so she's like, so this is what's going to happen. And so after he gets done reading it, he's like, and she's like, you still want to do this? And he's like, well, and she's like, he's like, yeah. She's like, that you want me to bring that back to talk to you.
I get it though. I mean, like, I would want the closure. I would want him to talk.
Obviously, I feel like the closure would be I'd be like, hey, you know that little bitch that wrote that? I cut her head off.
Yeah. And put it on a different,
and then I just,
well, like ultimately it was like really selfish
all the time.
Like it was like super selfish. Like they try to like set it up where Louis like,
but I understand the impulse,
but he's jerk. I understand them. Yeah, you're right. But like the whole like depth and like intensity of the ritual, you know, that like Courtney's about to talk about, where they like get her back, is that like it's so selfish. Like Claudia is like, who the hell knows where she is? Like they don't even, you know, Anne Rice doesn't like even try to make any sort of like spiritual hierarchy thing. So it's like, who knows where she is? And they have to pull her from the deep dark depths of wherever that is. Of course she's gonna be mad. It's still a bitch when she gets back. Like, anyway,
yeah, this book does not
thought Louis should have
just any.
It doesn't make any sense.
I'd be like, cool.
But this book does not make any actual determinations in the end of it, like what happens after you die. It says what happens if you become a vampire, but like if you die, this book is not.
Now, see, I guess in them Knock the Devil, we find out when Lestat drinks Jesus's blood, we find out more. But That's Lestat. Lestat is higher plating than everybody else. The rest of
Lestat's
them,
story is so unrelated to anybody else's story at this point that they might as well be different species. So
yeah,
right.
but also
But
there's like slight suggestions that everything that happened to Mimnock the Devil was like a hallucination that Lestat had. So like there's no guarantee that like what Lestat actually says happened in that book actually happened. Like he might have.
And also, so I was thinking about this the other day about the timeline of this shit. Because when assuming that the timeline that was what is happening in these books, because it takes place in contemporary America. Like the framing device, at least always before they start telling a story that's fucking stupid, is always happening now. So okay, the Vampire Lestat came out in when? Like late 80s, early 90s. And in that, Lestat was
earlier
really
than that.
in making a really good music video and not eating rats anymore. So you're going to tell me that in the time in which I have been alive, Lestat went from eating rats to my band is hot to I tongue fucked Jesus. To I'm an invincible god and you can no longer actually write a book about me because it's like it has a Superman problem. Like I'm sorry, that is a lot.
I mean, it really is.
I'm for personal growth,
story.
but
it really is. It really is just like a straight up
literal rags to literal riches. I mean, that's a lot to fucking happen to a bitch. I guess I understand why he's napping. I would need a nap too. It is a lot. It's a lot to take in. You know, I mean, then of course, like, so I guess the problem with these books at this point is that you can't have too much Lestat in it, even though that's obviously all Anne really wants to write about, because it's the Superman problem. How do you write a really engaging Superman story? I guess we'll find out when he goes to Atlantis, and I'm really fucking looking forward to that nonsense. That's going to be.
So one of the things that Merrick makes him do is she's like, you need to remember, like, here's what I need. We're gonna have to pick a page out of this diary. We're gonna have to destroy it. I need to know her mother's name. And he's like, well, I don't remember that. She's like, yes, you fucking do. You're a man. I know you're a man and you're an idiot, but I want you to think back. And so
She is actually caring for him in this way. She really is. And I mean, Louis is completely non-appreciative and does not, but she really is actually trying.
She's like, this is going to be bad. So they're at the...
before you say that, we should say that they introduced the idea with these previous spiritual possessions of Cold Sandra and Honey in the Sunshine is that it's unclear, like these spirits might lie. And that these spirits might not be who they say they are.
She tells him it's from the jump. She does say, she tells him this, and she's like, if I get in a feeling in any way that this is not actually Claudia and that we have brought something that is not good, which Claudia wasn't good, but if we have brought something back, we're shutting it down. Like, party's over, blah, blah, blah. And so... we get to the same, like, it's
so dramatic. Like, it is amazing. Really exciting, I have to say. Like, it is written.
I really liked it. It was real Halloween-y. Yeah. It was real like
it was perfect for October. It was so good.
It might be like it might be the spookiest thing this bitch has written in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, this was legit. Yeah.
So she is going to be using her. She's going to be using her sister, Honey in the Sunshine. We get there's like a whole altar set up. And one of the things that has been continuous through the whole story is the like voodoo altar that her
Great Nanan had.
Yeah, we get to the altar. We have the same altar that her Great Nanan had. And on
it does have a hand on it.
No, the hand
comes a people hand on it.
Well, that hand comes later. It's got a skull, which is her sister's skull, and then it's got all these other things. Yeah, and then what she does, she tells Louis that they're going to need a sacrifice. They'll need and at first David is all like, well, we can't sacrifice a human.
You're a fucking vampire, David.
That's what she said.
You eat people. I know.
Yeah.
And then Louis is like, well, I'll be the sacrifice. And Merrick's clocking it. She's like, all right. So She's got a big cauldron. There's a cauldron. It's great. We got cauldron going. Yeah. And so she has got her sister's skull that she was able to find the car that her sister and her mother.
Oh, she went down to the bayou and she went collecting bits.
Well, yeah. I mean, but also they had been buried in the family cemetery, but she dug up her sister's skull for this because she's using her sister as the guide to find Claudia. And so Louis' dumbass finally remembers Claudia's mother's name was Agatha, which ties into
all along.
Yeah,
it was Agatha all along.
People like it.
All along.
Yeah, people like it. I haven't seen
it.
I'm obsessed. It's okay. That's a whole other episode.
She is doing this incantation spell, whatever you want to call it. And it's very,
she keeps saying dramatic. That. Yeah. She cannot be denied.
Yes, she has cut herself. She has put in one of the pages. She's got Claudia's doll. It's in the fire. A road, all this stuff. And she is I am Merrick Mayfield. She's doing this whole incantation thing. It's very, very cool. It's great. It's
she's so boss in it. She's just absolutely
She just keeps saying. She keeps saying. I am Merrick. I cannot be denied. I am Merrick Mayfair. I cannot be denied.
And she's like, awesome. Honey in the sunshine. She's like, honey in the sunshine. Find Claudia, the daughter of Agatha, and bring her forward. I am Merrick Mayfield. I will not be denied. Over and over and over. And she cuts Louis' arm and puts his blood in there, and his blood also gets on a shirt. Put that aside. And so this keeps going, and it's building up, and David, of course, is sitting there doing nothing but being horrified. And then finally you see this form start to take start to take shape and get more and more solid, and all of a sudden Claudia is there. And what happens, y'all? This reminds me of a ghost hunter show that I watched. Just stick with me.
Okay. Go, cook.
It was one of those TLC businesses where they were going to a haunted hotel, and these people were and again, I was like, you guys obviously don't know anything, because they were like, you know who we're going to have a seance to contact and try to bring back to talk to us is Joan Crawford. Now.
Oh, hell no. You gonna die.
Wow. Yeah.
And when the person brings Joan Crawford, the guy's sitting there, he's like, who dare, and it was yes. So this is very much the vibe, is Joan Crawford being brought forth from a haunted hotel seance, is little Claudia, who is a mega pissed. And she's like, well, I'm here. What do you want? And Louis like, Claudia. And she's like, what do you want? And he's like, I just wanted you to... And she's like, what, you're going to tell me that you love me and all these things? And she just reads this man for filth in the most... She's like, you are the most pathetic. She's like, what do you want?
He wants to be absolved, right?
And she's
he gets absolutely the opposite, which everybody told him he was going to get.
Right.
Literally, everybody said, you don't necessarily want to do this because this is what will happen. And he's like... Burr, 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 burr.
She's at one point, she's like, you want me to tell you to kill yourself so you can come here and be at peace? She's like, you will not be at peace. And she's like, she's like, kill yourself, because I want you to come here and then you will never find me and I will never come to you. And
you'll never be at peace.
I want you to hurt the whole time it happens. I want you to be in a hideous
I hate you so much.
Laugh. Oh my God.
She's like, it was basically I don't even care enough about you to hate you. I think that you were the most pathetic thing that has ever been in existence.
Which, and it vibes, right? I mean, that is what we all think about Louis, yes?
I mean, but also, it was in the diary.
Do it.
I know. It's he just doesn't believe what is already in front of him. It almost made me feel bad for him, which is a hell of a thing to do.
He's so delusional. And the thing is that then Merrick is like, it wasn't real. It wasn't her. And
no, what she says, okay, hold on.
Her before.
So the thing happens. He's like, Louis is like, I gotta go. Does a storm off.
I got some ends to tie up. Yeah.
No, wait, she stabbed him in the chest.
Yes.
Remember?
Oh yeah. Yes, that little girl. Like all of a sudden,
the ghost stabbed him. Like I made note of that because it's unusual for a ghost to hurt a human.
Yes,
like,
ghost stabs him. And so, Merrick cuts the connection. She's like able to she rips the shirt off of him. Anyway, and he's like, I gotta go. And Merrick's like, okay, cool. But what she tells when David was like, well, that was obviously, and she's like, no, that was Claudia. She's like, but the thing about it is that Claudia, all the things that she said about him and her feeling to him are real, but her depiction of the afterlife is not real. Like those are lies. That isn't all a lie. But it is that was Claudia. She's like, don't question me on my job. I'm very good at it. She's like, ghost and spirit. Then she got like you said, will lie.
Sunshine in Guatemala. Remember, like she got. I feel like there's a lot of question marks at the end.
Well, she was also 23, 24 with Honey in the Sunshine. She's now like a seasoned ghost raiser, So, amazingly, Louis is David's making sure that, he's trying to check on homegirl, make sure Merrick's okay, because, it takes a lot out of somebody to bring back a stone cold.
Oh, she turns over the altar. She fucking busts up the altar and walks off, and then she's exhausted.
And so David
would be.
And David is convinced that Louis has killed himself in the moments after. But he has not. He's back at the apartment writing an angry letter, and Louis shows up, and Louis surprisingly,
Louis got a little glow up. He and so this would concern me, if you were worried.
But he's
about to kill himself.
Yeah, but he's surprisingly cool about. He's surprisingly cool about Claudia. He's like, yeah, I get it. He's like, but you know who's great? Is that Merrick. She is amazing.
She is pretty great. I have to say.
Well, no, but David's like, oh shit. He's like, she ensorcelled you. He's like, he's like, yeah, man, I would know if she ensorcelled me. It's like, would you? Would you? So he's like, but you know what? It's cool. I love her so much that I'm just going to kill myself, and it's going to be fine. And he's like, all right. And David's like, well, we got to go to bed now. We'll figure this out later. So David goes and David is stressed. He's got a witch doing all kinds of crazy shit over here. He's got a vampire who's about to kill himself. He's looking at Dad Vampire. He's like, gee, I wish you would wake up, Dad. We might have... we might have bitten off too much.
He also goes to talk to Lestat, and just I guess, honestly, Lestat's a great listener. You take whatever problems you have, and you just speak them to Lestat, and he's just listening to his CD player. So you're good.
You know what Lestat is, though? Because Lestat has been laying on that bed too much. It's like when you ask your kid to dust a piece of furniture, and then you go and pick up something, and they've dusted all around it, anyway. So Louis and, David goes to talk to Merrick, and he's like, you ensorcelled him, didn't you? And she's like, the best way to get over a bitch is to get under another one.
You damn right. Every time.
And he's like, respect, but also that guy is a suicidal mofo. And she's like, oh shit. But so she goes and finds Lestat. Lestat's like, you are amazing. Let's go run away together. She's like, cool. And David's like, you're not going to turn her into a vampire, right? And Louis like, no,
I would never do that, because
David
I will never turn him into a vampire. I will not turn this bitch into a vampire. All right, I'm gonna wake up in the morning and not turn anybody into a vampire. I'm gonna eat lunch and not turn anybody into a vampire.
Yeah.
Guess who? And then what does he do? Yo?
Guess what he does?
And so when David finds them again after he's gone bitching to again corpse Lestat, all of a sudden, here's Merrick, and he's like, oh, no, she's a vampire. And Louis like, yeah.
Louis is just deadish.
A charcoal briquette is what Louis is.
Merrick. He fanged Merrick. This is a guy, the weakest sauce fucking vampire. The vampire who's let's say if there's vampire sperm, it's just tails, okay? Decided to make one, the only vampire I think that he ever made. And then just went for a walk in the fucking sunlight. That's what he decided to do? What the fuck?
Hold on.
And clearly couldn't even do it right.
He wheels out his coffin like that like that lady who has the suicide pod. It's like he's like in his coffin, and he's like, well, maybe what I'll do is put this out here because you know what, I don't want anybody to have to clean some mess up, so you guys know where I am. Here's my coffin. And so it's like he's in like the Honda Civic of like suicide, you know, he's in this suicide pod, and like he's just kind of black and like
okay, we're all doing the same thing. He's like drawn up like.
Yeah, I think Merrick says that he's like hard and cold. Like
it's
he's
like
that stone or something.
It's like that little. It's like charred. It's that mummified body meme that everybody uses for The Hangover. You know, like where it's like feeling great. That's what he looks like. And Merrick is freaking out, and she's like, I got some shit to tell you, but I'll tell you like in a minute. She's like, can we wake up the dad vampire now? Like, what do we do? Is he dead? Oh my God. It's like two kids.
And David's like, oh God, maybe we can see if Dad will come in for this one.
So Dad.
Really time to call Dad now, guys.
Dad.
Really gotta call Dad. We have really completely fucked up this babysitting.
Yeah. The house is on fire.
We really need to call somebody's dad.
And here's the thing, we haven't even like, it's like if three siblings are left alone, and what has happened is we've really hurt the favorite sibling. Like that's the baby. We're like, oh God. And so Lestat's dusty old ass wakes up.
He's like, oh God damn. He like shakes off some dust. You know,
the best part is Claire, you have Claire,
okay,
you
so
have to share it.
Okay, so first of all, Merrick and Louie are just like Merrick and David are just kind of like, oh no, what the fuck do we do? Like Louie tried to kill himself and failed, and now it's a mess. And like Lestat like rolls in his dusty ass, like literal dusty ass. And so I listened to it on audiobook. And when Lestat showed up, his voice was all like raspy like this, just kind of like, I mean, with the French accent, which I can't do, of course. But so the narrator of the audiobook was basically like, what do we have here? Like, I gotta fix this mess now. Like, just this like raspy ass Lestat, like, what have y'all been doing? It was hilarious. It was really funny.
You alone for 20 years.
I know. I just had to go to the grocery store. I just wanted to ask.
You would have ever showed up for your kids. If you had ever come to our recitals, our belt test,
please. Here is the thing. It's if nothing is that Lestat has spoiled Louie. So Lestat's like,
yeah, he thinks he can get away with this shit.
Yes, Lestat's like, well, okay. So he like opens up his like super vein, and he's like, you two get on this too, because we're gonna need it all. And so
in other words, this is literally, this whole book might actually be to fix the problem that Louis the vampire is too fucking weak to hang with the bad bitches.
Yeah,
like literally,
they're like
he's not good enough of a vampire, so we had to write a whole ass book about how we finally got him to drink the blood of those who kept.
Right, but he didn't drink it because remember Lestat's like, I can't make him drink me. I'll make him a monster. Like Lestat's blood is too potent to give it to Louis, so they literally spray him with blood.
Treatment.
They do like a vampire blood shower. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's like the first bit of Blade, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Louis, my kid just watched recently, so he's like a Blade expert. And by the way, they have Blade on Fortnite up to like last week. And you know what Blade costs to buy on Fortnite? It is
$29.99.
Yeah, it's more than Thank you. Jesus Christ. Anyway,
I had a Fortnite kid. I know how much that shit costs.
How much was that? So Louis wakes
I had
up.
to say I've never played Fortnite, but when Geralt was on it, I really did think about it. But then I had to play Fortnite just to play as my video game boyfriend.
So
anyway.
Louis wakes up and he's like, "Well, I was incorrect." Like, gee,
I have made a grave mistake.
Grave mistake.
All right. Accidental. Okay.
There you go.
So they get him cleaned up. Lestat literally shakes himself off and puts on a new pair of pants. And Merrick finally is like, well, since we're telling the truth, here we go. And this crafty little bitch, she's like,
I do like her.
She's like, she's like, look, I had a plan. I really wanted, she's like, David, obviously we know about, I'm not an idiot. I knew you were a vampire. I want to be a vampire too, but I knew you weren't going to let me be a vampire. So here's what I did, David Talbot, is I went to where your old ass body was, and I cut off your skeleton hand, and I took it with me. And not only was Louis ensorcelled, I ensorcelled you, but I ensorcelled you to where you didn't think I did a fake ensorcelling earlier. You thought I ensorcelled you earlier, but that was a fake out for the real ensorcelling. So you got ensorcelled and Louis got ensorcelled because I wanted to become a vampire. And they're like,
get you a bitch who will go to that level for you.
And they're like,
it was you so fucking lucky, right?
Yeah.
It was a really tiered plan. I mean, it was like,
yes.
It was multi-level.
The kind of plan, by the way, that doesn't work because it actually does rely on 5,000 things going the exact way that you want them to.
Well, I feel like if you're like, you know what? I mean, all she had to do was cut off a hand and she did it. So good for her.
That's a long way down, though. That's a lot of digging.
And then she's like, so Lestat, are we cool? And he's like, well, you're the most fun out of this group. So yes, we're here. Here,
we talked about this a lot about how
have some of my good blood. Here, have some of my fun blood. Like we gonna party.
Louis blood. Fuck that shit.
But I think Louis Louis take it though? He might. I think he once he realized because he said
he does because he's at that point now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, he said that
for a penny and for a fucking pound.
When he was after he rolled his coffin out was like, and he was like, there was nothing. He was like, well, I guess they're all right. And I've been wrong. And so they all take the super blood and are just chilling out. They're like, new little coven in honeymoon, honeymoon phase. But then the Talamasca is like, hey, Merrick, we know what you did. You got stuck.
Starts to pull some fucking blackmail shit, some excuse me shit.
With a letter to
who do you think you are?
Well,
you don't know that you're the Talamasca, nobody's favorite.
They tell Lestat, they tell them all, you guys got to clear out of New Orleans, and he's like, I am New Orleans. What the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
To New Orleans.
He's like,
yeah.
He's like,
but they basically, I love the way they tell him I can't think of the word. They call him was it quarry or something? They're gonna hunt him. They're like, we are going to hunt you now.
I am literally a god.
He writes them a letter back, he's like, your letter was very rude.
Yes.
And fuck around and you'll find out. And David basically has to be like, well, let's just move. And can you please not hunt all my old friends? And Lestat's like,
well, just for you, bitch.
No, I would have been like, let's do it. Let's. And so, and then it ends
let's
with,
roll. What are they going to do? Nothing.
Yeah.
Lestat,
what do you have?
Lestat is basically...
What super weapon do you have to kill Lestat? Lestat is a vampire who invented vampire.
So what he does is he's like, okay, well, we're going to write this book. And so that's where we are. And so that's the end of this book.
Yes. Yeah, so we were at third level storytelling. Odysseus did not do that shit. He didn't get to the third level.
Whatever. It was okay. But yeah. But now, yeah.
I do want to point out that the Talamasca were the thing they were the maddest about was Merrick calling spirits from the dead. Talamasca didn't even know about all the vampire shit that went down, all the super
which because obviously does seem like an abomination, I mean, if about, preserving boundaries and shit.
Yeah, but they don't even know about that. They're like, we found out that you called a spirit from the dead and you're a Talamasca member and that's not allowed.
Well, that's my spirit.
So.
She's my kin and fuck you. That one belongs to me. You know what?
Yeah.
I have to say, look, if I called your sister, that might be an international problem. If I called my family, we got business to settle.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to say something based on what y'all were talking about before. Just about like the nature of this story and everything is like, so I have this theory about these short novels is that these are just like nuggets that Anne Rice had, you know, and like she might have wanted to turn them into those like 1,000-page novels, but she just never did. And so her editor was like, we got to get some shit out, you know, like let's write something. And so she built these just like little, like actual, you know, I mean, they're just not the same because they don't have that epic feeling of the other longer ones, you know, but they're like, they're fun and they're like, you know, you get into it and things happen. Yeah. But then we have these like dead ends, like Matthew is a dead end and like Uncle Ravon is a dead end, you know, and like all like, it's like we don't get any explanations because she didn't take the time to like make them into 1,000-page novels. Does that make sense? Anyway, I think it's cool. I like these shorter pieces of Anne.
I wish that I did not realize doing this that when there's only 2 that are quote unquote tales of the new vampires. They're outside of the numbering of Chronicles and Pandora. And they actually mention this in the book that the Talamasca files for Pandora came out before this. In other words, we were supposed to have read Pandora. And I like Pandora a lot in the book. So I wish that we had read Pandora. Now at this point I'm like, well, you know what? No, we should do a half year. We should.
I was going to say,
I don't want to make y'all.
Oh my God, hold on.
Back.
Wait. So Pandora, we should do it. Pandora was published January 6th. We should make it.
That's your, no matter what happens, we're going to put out a Pandora. Okay. No. That's a great idea. Okay. We'll do that. We will put out Pandora no matter what happens on January 6th.
All right.
Because I don't want to go back because, you know, y'all are expecting a thing. At the same time,
we're not going back, Sarah.
So much.
We've already said
never go back.
We're not going back.
All right, questions.
All right, I got the.
You've got the one. Yeah, you've got the one for. Okay.
I don't know what happened to the other one. I can't find it.
Mystery.
So anyway, big dick energy or big dick energy? I have to say that David Talbot's dick is disappointing.
Well, you know, he's just happy that it could still work.
I know. At least he got to use it, I guess.
He was
Courtney, if you say that this man is in his 50s, then that is also disappointing.
Because what he says in the book is that he's like, curse being young enough to want to bang a girl. Like, so. I don't know. Yeah.
I think Merrick has the actual energy. Well, Merrick has absolute BDE. Oh, okay.
We're not there yet. We're talking about the heroine. No, I mean, like, the fact is...
The heroine is Louis. Merrick has BDE, and Louis is the heroine, and yes, we would talk shit about him.
Stress.
Yes, so...
Yeah, well, I mean, because, like, regardless of his narrative dick is pathetic. When you open that goddamn like a fucking book and it was like, hey yo, like and subscribe my YouTube channel. It's me, your boy David Talbot. We all like had like, so what is the opposite of sploosh? It's like a little Sahara business. like
cotton mouth.
Not to be profane, but my vagina went up into my lungs.
Oh,
like the
cotton crotch.
The
is that what we call it?
I've ever seen. Yes, like that is. Nobody wants a book narrated by David Talbot ever. Nobody.
But you know what? I will deal with it if I get this kind of like again. I felt like at least he was lame, but like
that's fair. But the thing is that. Our only exposure to David up to this point has been as an ancient white British man, right? And he only reminds us once that he is now in the body of a hot young Asian man. So like we don't think of him that way, you know? So it's like
looking like a kid with stolen valor.
If he would
deal with any kind of anti-Asian sentiment.
I didn't know that we were going to be getting, like if we knew that he looked like one of the BTS.
Like if he reminded us how fucking hot he was and he's like 30 now and like I might be like, oh yeah, that's right,
like I still see him.
No, it's still
like,
got his mind.
That's true.
And I'm gonna vote that a no. He's the Watchers Council from Buffy, and that's some bullshit.
You're right.
No, and also, not to mention, this is not a man who has actually ever had to, in his life, because now he lives a charmed, vampire, rich life. He didn't grow up as an Asian man. He didn't grow up as any.
Fair enough. Yeah.
He's never experienced racial animus of any kind.
Right.
But now he wants to be hot.
Right.
So fuck him. But don't.
Well, here's the thing,
Don't fuck him. Right.
I don't remember how he got in the body. I don't think it was like that one.
That was the body that the body thief stole, and he had like a brain injury.
Right,
Like,
so it's not. I would. To be fair to David, who I don't like, but it's not like he was like
he didn't do it on purpose.
He's not like I choose you. You know, he's like I'll take that.
No. But
Whose body?
okay, not stolen vampire. It's not stolen vampire.
Whose body would you thief?
The hottest.
Like, but no, like who's like if you could like pick a body to thief?
A specific person.
I would thief. Ultimately, I would want to be like Javier Bardem because I want to be like the swaggeriest man that I could be.
I was thinking of Pedro Pascal. So
yes,
sort of.
because
I love y'all are like picking hot dudes because I'm like I would body thief Jeff Bezos because I want to be a billionaire who owns the Washington Post.
I mean, I really would like to remain a woman if I was going to body thief, but like the first things that came to mind were like really attractive.
No, I would be Jeff Bezos' divorced ex-wife.
Ooh, yeah.
That's what I want to be. Who gave all her money to HBCUs and
12 lives.
No. But I don't want to do that to her. I don't want to put her in my body. That would be bullshit. So I want to put Jeff Bezos in my body, and he's gonna have to act like he knows how to be a librarian. I want to see that shit because that'd be amazing. I should have done it yesterday before I had to present at a conference because I would pay fucking cash ass money to see Jeff Bezos talk about how to do a reading challenge at his library and how you can do with no money. Fuck you, Jeff Bezos.
If I was going to pick a woman, I would pick Salma Hayek because then I'd be best friends with Penelope Cruz, and
you'd still have access to Javier Bardem,
and I'd be married to a billionaire.
You got this all figured out. I like it.
Pick.
Yes.
You know, I bet she also bathed in Chanel number 22.
Or the blood of virgins. Who knows? It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Either the Elizabeth Bathory track.
Yeah. So it works out.
Just to think about David back in like y'all made a good point. Like he's been in this body of this other person, this Asian man, and there's no reference to like race or treatment or anything. I mean, like even though he's a vampire, like he's still out in the world. And he's no longer like an old white British man. He is now a young, didn't he say he was Pakistani? Is that right? Like he was from Pakistan? The person
I
he was
am not
in?
Clear because it all happened in Tales of the Body Thief and we really hated that book.
Right, of course. But anyway, but there's no, other than just like brief descriptions of who he's in, he doesn't talk about how he's treated in that body or anything.
He just says
would be
it's
interesting.
Convenient for him because he's very pale now, but it's covered up by his skin being darker.
Right.
Which also they brought up with, one.
Oh my God.
Merrick guy.
Can we talk about the colorism? Oh, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it. So, okay. Would you talk shit with or without the heroin?
Merrick is fucking amazing. All right. Merrick is amazing. She is so good. I love her so much. The way she spits rum through her teeth is hot as fuck. She does smell a lot. She smells like holy shit.
Oh, wait.
5-alarm fire.
Wait, I looked up what Chanel 22 smells like. Hold on, while we were talking. It says gorgeous jasmine, orange blossom, fresh green note of lilac and sweet rose. So anyway,
it's a lighter Chanel number 5. It's like Chanel number 5 for ladies who are younger. But I don't like a green or white floral personally. I find,
me neither.
Okay, so I grew up in South Carolina, and my mother is a Yankee. And she was all like, oh, you need to smell the lilac. And I was like, really? Oh, yeah, you need to smell the lilac. And I was like, well, whatever. So we were up in Pittsburgh one year, like 10 years ago. And she's like, oh, they're blooming. Let's go smell the lilac. And I was like, oh, my God, that smells like ass. It smells like fucking lilies, yo. It smells like that green
Yeah,
shit.
it's very strong.
Oh, oh my god!
I think
any perfume that's that.
I think
a
22
white floral
has
or a green floral is garbage to me, and like oh my god. Sorry.
I think that 22 has been discontinued.
See, Mademoiselle is sort of like a lighter Chanel smell.
See, I've worn Mademoiselle. I had that.
Yeah.
I had a bottle of that.
I
And
did
it's
too.
real good. I like that one.
Yeah. If you're a younger lady.
The other thing that she used was before she got her Chanel number 22 was Florida water. They talk about the Florida water and like the smell of her Florida water perfume and stuff. So it's like a very anyway, but yeah, Merrick is great.
So interesting because so obviously Anne Rice sees herself in Lestat. You don't have to be a fucking literature professor, even though we have one here on the fucking podcast. You don't have to be a literature professor to understand like Anne Rice and Lestat. They have like a thing, right? They have like a very unhealthy relationship. But I do think that Merrick is like Anne Rice being like, what if I were a lady?
I absolutely agree. That's absolutely what I was going to say. I had that thought while I was reading it or listening to it, still reading. But I was like, this is who Anne Rice wants to be in her like mythos, like if she's not Lestat, she wants to be Merrick because like I want to be Merrick. Like I was reading it, I was like, I fucking want to be Merrick. She's a badass.
It's probably since the first two books, it's probably her strongest, best character she's created.
Oh yeah. So I get why she's like, hey, this bitch, we're gonna make her a vampire and we're gonna have her in this thing.
Well, I think the thing is that Lestat is basically, she's in love with Lestat. It's the same way that like Stephanie Meyer, like it's this whatever of female authors who create vampire characters falling in love with their character, right? Like, and then I think I feel like because obviously who she wants to be.
I feel like this is reminiscent too of our conversation about Gabrielle back from the Vampire Lestat, because like she's also, I mean, she's not as well explored even I think as Merrick, but
let me tell for people who might not have read or heard, Gabrielle is Lestat's mom, and she is a very
kick-ass vampire.
Kick-ass vampire. She's awesome. She does not need humans at all whatsoever. She actually wears the
She's run around the jungles
because it's useful.
I think she just now like runs around the jungle.
Yeah, she also is one who just
wild being. Yeah, she's just a wild creature. She's become like, I think that's what's so interesting. There's so many vampires that go into this like who are Lestat, who are whatever, and like become these
feral. They just go feral. They go utterly animal. Yeah. But not animal. They go higher than animal and yet also to the ground. To the dirt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Gabrielle buried herself for 50 years or something, didn't she? I don't remember. She was just I'm out.
Very frequently, they go into the earth for a few decades because you would almost fucking have to, right?
I would love to go into the earth for a few decades.
Oh, my fucking God. It's the dream. On the weekends, I try to go into the earth.
Vampire life is amazing.
And these fucking assholes go in and are you okay? And I'm like, go away.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing.
Leave me alone.
Lestat made the mistake of not going full Earth. Like he's just laying on the bed and see what happens.
The Earth is sprinkling down on him.
It's dusting him up.
Yeah, you just gotta go down. Just go down. But the thing is, he wants a CD player to have the Berlin Philharmonic playing. That's what he wants. That's
I'm really
on NPR. He wants to hear a performance today.
I'm really sad that Anne Rice didn't write Lestat with an iPod and making playlists, or on Spotify. Imagine
eventually
if Lestat was on Spotify, he'd just be like, here's
all I want is somebody to have the IP.
Like and subscribe.
I want somebody to just buy the intellectual. Come on, her son. Just start writing Lestat Wild and Out. All right, what's our next question?
So, when it comes to consent, is this book more Marvin Thicke or Robin Gay? The age thing we have to talk about, yo.
Yeah.
It's not cool, and it's written gross. It's not written as one of those romances that we read all the time where she's 17 and fine. No, it is written disgusting.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple things. First of all, yeah, I think it's gross. I think that, and especially because immediately David is like, I'm in love with her. She's hot. Blah, blah, blah. Again, talking about her nipples way too much for a 14-year-old. Yeah. And he's like, what, in his 30s or 40s at that point? Like, shut up, dude.
But it's also the way that Anne writes about, like, the other thing is, like, when he had first seen her, like you mentioned, Sarah, like, the first time he actually saw her was when she was 10, and he's like, even then, she was, like, on the cusp.
Yeah, it's the way that a man writes about a young woman. It's not the way that women write so much about young women, and it is super gross. And I had to say, okay, y'all heard the feet, people. You know who you are. That's fine. You do your thing. But the way that she writes about the feet in this book is like, holy shit, y'all.
It's big on feet.
Yeah, there's some feet business in this. And it is pornographic about the way that her arch stretched across the high heel. And like, what the fuck? She is 14 years old. And also, she smells like a perfume factory blew up that the Joker set a bomb in it. What the fuck? And she's drunk and smoking a cigar.
Yeah, I do think that Merrick takes it back, though. I mean, I think that, like, she lets Anne Rice, that is, like, lets Merrick, like, own it all in the end. Like, and even when she's a kid and they're talking about, I mean, it's creepy and predatory and whatever, but it's still like Merrick is self-composed and knows herself. Does that make sense? Like, she doesn't really seem like a victim ever, even though the men are being predatory.
That feels weird in these books. You know, I'm thinking about, like, some Piers Anthony books that I read when I was younger that, like, seemed okay at the time and are now, like, I want to fucking throw up. You know, that, like, sometimes the setup is that.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair.
Like, it's gross, but it's fine because she knows what she wants and she, like, whatever.
I see. So it's like, right. I understand. Yeah.
I think too. What's interesting?
I don't think that's the case here, but I'm just saying that is
right. Thing. I get what you're saying.
I think, like, but what Claire is talking about, like, what I get really about it, like, too, again, comparing books by, you know, this same, like, in the same wheelhouse. So, like, what I find interesting about it is nothing obviously happens until she is a fully formed adult. Like, I'm not taking away from the grossness, but I think too is that she, despite her mom being called Sandra and like all this, she came from, like, she had family who loved her and cared for her and like that kind of stuff.
And she came from a matriarch.
Like, if we go, but if we go back to Armand, who Armand's family had abandoned, like, had sent him to go live, like, basically, like, you're gonna live in this little...
too. Like, all the men, actually, there's no men with supportive families in this.
Right, but, like,
yeah.
You know, like, so what was much more predatory is that, like, Armand is seeing Magnus as please love me. However you have to do it, just love me. Whereas, like, again... she had that background of somebody to, like, care, like, she had her own sense of self-worth. Even
agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Like, she has a whole entire female dynasty of support, whereas, like, honestly, all the men in these books, like, they have garbage families. You know, I mean, I'm thinking about Lestat. You know, comes to mind, especially like Gabrielle. We talked about her as a mother. I know other people were a little more supportive about her, and I was not. But I mean, at another rate, you know, that's not who you want as your mom. Just want to say we have 15 minutes.
But I think, like, in terms of, like, again, I looked at, like, with Armand, it was like he became essentially part of, like, this little sex coven, and when he was very young, and, like, it was kind of like this, like. You know, it felt like that, but it became like his house, like, it was much more intrinsically tied to this, like, kind of familial love. And I think
I agree.
Like, the difference.
Sure.
So,
but, like,
but yes, the consent part of it is obviously gross. And also, we also have non-consensual hexing. We got, like stealing people who had been body snatched.
Yeah, I think that might be oxymoron. I think it might be oxymoronic to say non-consensual hexing. Because I don't think anyone wants. Yeah,
no, but she's the one out here doing stuff.
Please. Yeah,
she's digging up. She is digging up things left and right.
I'm a little bit bothered now, Sarah. I'm obsessing about what you said about if the fact that how Merrick is portrayed is supposed to allow us to let her be sexualized. Does that make sense? I've portrayed her in this way so that now that's extra disturbing to me, and that had not occurred to me before. It's not shit.
Permission has been granted, right?
Right.
When it starts I don't like that. This entire book, no. But after you get the story, then the first thing is when I met her, she was 10. And this is... And it's
also the adultification of young Black girls, this adultification
and the sexualization. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's such a it's such a problem throughout all media, and so
I hate that.
And that goes more into further questions.
How badly are you judging your mama for reading this book?
Okay, so I wouldn't judge anybody for reading this. I think it's like we've talked about, it's one of the more concise Anne Rice novels.
Yes.
And also
I read this in an ebook and I didn't know the number of pages and it felt so long.
Yeah, that's crazy. I listened to it as an audiobook and it was brief. I was like, oh yay. This will be easy for me to listen to it because it's not that long and But I will say, too, it doesn't have a lot of gore. Well, it doesn't have a lot of gore. It doesn't have a lot of sex.
No,
it's sort of a tamer novel, And we talked about how in the other novels, like, nobody really has sex. There's just always like the sexual sort of like pressure.
Chests together.
Yeah.
They're like giving a little.
Yeah. This is more like, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't judge anybody for reading this. I'd be like, "Ooh, what's that? That's a different Anne Rice novel. It's not one of the tome ones."
I'm with Sarah. I mean, obviously, I think that it still has the same Anne Rice-ness to it, but it felt more concise. I felt like there was at least there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so often I feel like hers are just ramblings that I enjoyed this one. I felt like there was at least here's the thing, there's been so many in the past that we have read, in Queen of the Damned and all these things where it's you feel like we're building up to this massive conflict, confrontation, whatever, and then it just ends up being more talking. But this one, things actually happen. We get the crazy ritual to bring Claudia back. We get the whole Louis actually finally tries to off himself.
Do it, Louis. But
and
no,
for me, I was I felt weirdly part of me, half of my brain was well, obviously Lestat is Lestat's going to bring him back. But I was like, but what if he doesn't? And what if this is?
Yeah, I honestly did not know what was going to happen. I really did not know.
I felt for me, so much, again, even though this was a smaller book and it didn't have Claire mentioned, that kind of epic feel, I felt so much, at least
your ass.
I was like, damn.
That man took my box of wine.
You better get out your fucking perforator or whatever that tool is called that Merrick has, that hummingbird knife, and just be like, give it back. I'll stab you.
Everyone get out their altar. But I felt how we have been waiting since, again, this book came out in 2000. Since 1977, we have been waiting for Louis to do a thing, and Louis
did it. Because he just
finally did a thing.
Just wanders around, you'll just be looking around for something else, and there'll be Louis. It's like a guy who's on some sort of an automaton on some kind of it's on like a music box. Like,
so
it's not digital. It's a very manual thing, and he'll just show up and you'll be like, well, there you are.
So for me, this one felt like it actually had like momentum versus like the meanderings that sort of happened. So I really like, again, since the Vampire Lestat, this might be
Are you
one that I have
serious?
enjoyed the most.
I think so too, Sarah. I'm so sorry.
I hate it so much. I really thought, I'm shocked that y'all liked it. I really am shocked
here's the thing, that whole ritual situation,
that was good. That was legit.
That was such a buildup. And the cave was creepy, where they're in that cave and like they put there's actual moments of like real like kind of like, you know, Anne Rice.
For me, okay, it's like there are things that finally happened in this book. They all happened in the last like the back 40. All right. Mm-hmm. We had to sit through this whole fucking book. We had to sit through so much. So many verbs. So many nouns, so many prepositions, like
so many words.
I read it as an ebook, so I don't know how many pages it was, but I'm just saying that like 3 things happen in this book, and none of them happen in the whole like front 3/4 of this book. Like nothing happens in this book, and when it happens, it's good.
In Armand, the most exciting thing
I love that Russian sad shit.
But nothing happens. He gets stuck on a roof for like a month, and then you find out that again.
Well, who among us?
Oh my God!
Who among us have never been stuck on a roof for a month? You know what? I've been on a committee where I wish I'd been stuck on a roof for a month.
That's fair. You know, yeah.
I felt like at least this one had like, she's so descriptive. And like, here's the thing. She's great at world building. She's great at like creating this kind of stuff. But what she doesn't have a lot of times is like a driving like plot, a driving like action and narrative. But this one at least had it. We had a child get possessed, like at least moments of actions happen. So for me,
this could have been a novella. If this had been a novella, I would have been like, holy shit, this is the best thing Anne Rice ever fucking wrote. Because what I wanted to know more about is like, I want to know about a cold Sandra. Like,
and Honey in the Sunshine. Yeah. Well, it's funny because like, I think of this book as an Anne Rice novella just because of the length of it. Like, it's not a novella, but for Anne Rice, it is a novella. So, like, I did sort of think about it that way. That's funny. Like, it's like a brief one. It's just like, I will say that, like, I don't know if this is even what we're talking about anymore, but I really appreciated, like, the movement from scene to scene, at least later in the novel. Like, again, the beginning of the novel was really slow, like they usually are. But like later, it was like David was like, "Oh, I got sick," and then they took me to the hospital, and then I was better. You know, like it
was tight.
Like, it got tighter. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So, Claire, would you like to talk to us because you have read the Mayfair Witches books? Mm-hmm. This was supposed to be the crossover. It's not though, because this is like
no.
And we'll talk race a bit later, but I mean, this is
no. I think I would call it more a spinoff than a crossover because it definitely like gave you the story of this person who was connected to the Mayfair Witches. But yeah, a crossover it is not. They mentioned, like I said earlier, like Aaron Leitner and Uncle Julian are like, or Uncle Julian, however they say it. Sorry, I listened to the audiobooks, you can tell. But those are the only sort of crossover, but like they barely talked about Uncle Julian, who he is like a major figure in the Mayfair Witches. Like he's the only, like they said it in this book in Merrick, he's basically the only powerful male witch that ever came out of the Mayfair line. And like, he's a maniac and he just like propagates fucking New Orleans with other like Mayfair witches, not in the family, but I don't know. You're right. It wasn't a crossover. It was like a spinoff and I dig it. I'm like, okay, let's do this.
If that had been marketed to me as like, hey, here's where the Mayfair Witches meet the Vampire Chronicles, I would have been so fucking pissed.
Yeah, because it's not at all. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at like the first, the Mayfair Witch book. I think it's called like the Mayfair Witch Chronicles or like something like that. And it's, I don't know, 8,000 pages or something. Like, it's this huge tome, and like that one is literally the whole lineage, and it has a lot of like some mixed family, if you will. But mainly just all the white stuff. So anyway, I don't know. Like, I was excited about it too when it said like it's a crossover, and it's not. It's sort of a spinoff.
So do y'all want let's just launch into the big question here. It's our Would Florida ban it question.
Well, hold on a second.
Should Anne Rice, a white woman, ever be talking about race and colorism in
hold on. Just so people know, the first of the Mayfair Witch books is called The Witching Hour. It was written in 1990. Then it's Lasher and then Taltos. So
okay, so I was thinking what I'm thinking of is the Mayfair Chronicles is all of them, and then the Witching Hour is the first one, and that's like the super long one. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I just misremembered. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to put that out there, so we had it.
Yes, thank you. Actually, that's a super title, The Witching Hour. Yeah, that's why I read it when I was like 18.
Great title.
I was like, okay.
But so I get how. I mean, I understand that Anne Rice. She comes at this, and there are people. I'm sure there were amazing people who have done this before, but to the audience that she have not talked about colorism and race in witchcraft and voodoo in New Orleans. And Anne Rice is like, I shall take this mantle. That shall be mine. Let's discuss it. A lot of talk about noses, isn't it, in the past 20 pages?
Oh my God, if she had written African Blood one more time, I was going to throw the book in a fire. Like, if I had to hear that.
What was amazing to me,
the African Blood.
My husband is the Dark Shadows guy, is that the farthest back she gets is a woman named Angelique. And I was like, texting my husband, like, do you think this is accidental? He's like, absolutely not. But still, I'm not saying did she do it right. I'm saying should she have gotten anywhere fucking near that shit? The answer is obviously no.
I think again, it's a case of nice white ladiness. I think obviously do your research, because when you start talking about Mayan witches and you're calling them brujos, like, they would actually be called whatever the Mayan word for a witch is, because people in the Yucatan Peninsula still speak Mayan, and there are villages where people learn Spanish. So I mean, that's a whole subset. Because insofar of we're not even just dealing with a black-white race issue. We're dealing with when you go to South America and this this idea of indigenous and Hispanic people coexisting together. Handling that sort of clumsily as well. I think that is something that needs to be looked at too.
Yeah,
and I think. Also, it's insofar of again, as we talked about, the adultification of young black women is something that she is doing in here, and I think she's doing a lot of the nice white lady problems. She's trying, and at least she's not calling anybody with cafe au latte skin or things like that.
Yeah, but she does do that. She does not describe anybody.
She did. She said no. Cafe au lait came up several times. Yeah, and it was David though. Well, I mean, it was David.
Well, but then again, David is the shit.
Yeah, and he's also an old white British man trapped in a young Asian man's body. But yeah, no. I made a note that I was like, we are not describing people's skin color on coffee terms anymore. That should not be happening. And it did happen a couple times really early. I know cafe au lait came up, which is that's absurd.
Yeah.
But I do think a couple of things. First of all, I'm not trying to excuse anything, but I do think we have to contextualize it in time. Yeah. She's definitely writing about this in the late 90s when everybody felt like they could still get away with this kind of stuff, I don't need to do research. I don't need to be sensitive. I don't need to be culturally aware. Right. I just tell it how it is from my point of view, which is part of the problem, right? But I do think she was trying, and I think also that
I think she clearly did a lot of research into voodoo. Like, because like you can tell when somebody wants to show you the research they did, as opposed to showing you a story that they're telling in an organic universe. You can tell when somebody put the work in that is not their culture, which does not mean you cannot tell a story that's not your culture. I'm just saying when somebody wants to shove it down your throat that they did the work, that's what it feels like, is when Anne Rice is like,
I mean, but also, like,
I'll pay for this altar, you know?
But you know, the other thing, like, is that, you know, with New Orleans especially, like, you have to, like, to really talk about the city, it has to be a talk about race. And I mean, you know, she does, like, to her credit, like, she talks a lot about Black Catholicism, like, you know, bringing up, you know, St. Martin de Porres, like, that kind of stuff. So
she's not coming from a place of dumb fuck ignorance. Absolutely not. Like, she's coming from a place of somebody who knows people, and she knows a place, and she did a lot of work.
Yeah.
However, it's just got this vibe to it, right?
Well, but I think it's also, here's the thing, we're reading this now like 24 years after the fact, and I think it's like a really interesting, like, you can look at it and see the growth that has happened, and like understanding own voices, or at least like having a real cultural understanding of voices. You know, so obviously it's very problematic, but
yeah, I kind of wonder if, like, now, like, talking about it, I kind of wonder if I'm doing a lot of work for Anne Rice right now, but that's all right. That's what I always do.
Well,
I'm an English person.
You know.
She's not here. But, like, I kind of wonder if we're supposed to approach it from, again, David Talbot's point of view, who is an old white British man who admits that he doesn't know a lot about New Orleans, you know, and regardless of any exposure he's had, probably doesn't know a lot about race in America, especially the American South, you know? So, like, that's something, but also, again, I feel like I'm doing a lot of work there, and I don't know if I really am or whatever. So
it's hard to parse that, especially because what comes out a lot in this book as his fear, which may be David's fear, maybe Anne Rice's fear, maybe, you know, just the idea of a fear. So it's really hard to place it, of this neighborhood, quote, going downhill. So this place where her grandmother's house is, he is extraordinarily concerned. And this is like, when I say this is a point of concern in the book, you have to understand that this is, when the things are a point of concern to Anne Rice, they are a 30-page point of concern to Anne Rice. Like, she is very, very worried about the
really
fact that it's a quote-unquote bad neighborhood.
But I think what's really interesting to think about it is, especially now looking at it, because this book was obviously like, you know, it's 2000, but like knowing that essentially where this, like, this family is like Ninth Ward, and like, you know, we're looking at all this beforehand, and like now, like, this is before any kind of light was shed on, like, you know, a national spotlight, so to speak. So it is kind of this interesting time capsule to go back and revisit. I don't know. It is, obviously, there are lots of problems with not only, like we said.
Well, I almost wonder, this might be crazy, but I almost wonder if the way that Anne Rice wrote, especially in this book about Merrick and their passing and stuff, you know, she wrote a lot about passing and the different members of the family that would pass and couldn't pass, and that Merrick could pass.
There are a lot of talk about noses in this. Oh my God.
Yes, noses, the African blood.
This is so not common knowledge in 2000. So, like, kind of talk about it.
Right. So what I'm wondering is if this is her way of trying to not be obnoxious about race.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean,
like, I'm not gonna talk about the Black experience. Yeah, she did live in New Orleans. She was around these people all the time, you know, and probably, I mean, that's how she put these stories together. She has all these snippets of people's stories that aren't her own, you know, and whatever. But I wonder if she's like, I don't feel comfortable. Again, I'm doing so much damn work, but like, if she's like, I don't want to write about race, so I'm going to write about passing. Does that make sense? I don't know. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, no, it does.
Like,
I'm saying, like, we can read her many ways, and she is dead. She cannot speak for herself.
right.
And
I'm just spitballing. I'm not like saying this as like lore.
Yeah, I mean, we have no right to say any of this shit, right?
Right.
I mean, like, we have
Free
no
right
claim on this.
here.
Here's
We
the
would like
thing,
to
Hope.
apologize, in fact.
What we're going to do is we're going to go, if you can get me Anne Rice's arm, we can just totally.
We can call her up.
Notes.
Listen,
And her notes.
Courtney,
about how
I'll
you're
do
a
the
piece of shit.
Courtney, I'll do the ritual because I know how to do it now from the book. Like, I'll just do it and we'll get it.
I will drink some rum. Is that's the idea? I will drink some rum, and you know what? My orthodontics are a little bit fucking wonky. I will go. You know.
What I
Okay,
think
but
about-
go ahead,
Oh,
Courtney.
I was just saying, what I think about, like, especially looking at this as, like, being now, you know, what, a quarter century old, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
is that for a lot of people, especially, like, in a pre-Katrina world, like, this is a lot of people's maybe first, like, middle America readers, first introduction
That's fair.
to a different, you know, all of her books prior to this have been about two very white, very, you know, heteronormative, well, not even heteronormative, but like two
No,
very
not hetero.
vampire boys. Well, just, but like two very masculine, you know.
They're not really queer. They just fuck. You know, like they're not in any way culturally queer.
What? No, but remember,
absolutely.
like,
You're right.
but her whole thing is that prior to, like, you know, once they become vampires, they transcend sex. And so that has been like this whole like world that we've been. And like, so all of a sudden now she is trying to like bring more of like actual New Orleans into a story.
And if you've been to New Orleans, this house that Merrick lives in, you get it, right? Like this is the house that you.
Oh yeah, we've walked past it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, many times. Like it is a house that is. It's a real place. It is in the real world, not somebody who is drunk from those who must be kept, from a man who was keeping them since the Roman Empire. I mean, like, I'm serious, you know? I mean, like, this is I will say, like, and again, because we have been with this bee on a journey, like, that we have gone from, like, being in the wilds of, like, the Indian subcontinent to where people are lining up just to be like eaten by a vampire and thrown into a volcano, essentially, like Temple of Doom. So all of a sudden, like, she's actually trying to talk about some stuff. So like, it's interesting to see how she evolves with that. I can't give her a pass because that is not.
I'm not giving her a pass.
However, I do think that she is actually trying to portray her New Orleans, which
I agree. Like her perception of it, her experience.
This book is now a historical work, and so like I'm reading it, like looking at it through a historical lens. So you know, I think it is it's complicated. It's not perfect, and obviously there are parts that are very, very problematic. Again, i.e., the adultification and sexualization of young Black women. But it is interesting to see her talking about, like, again, a very real issue with, like, very real thing with, like, her mother being white passing, her sister being white passing. And, you know, so it's.
Yeah, it's really, really fucking fuzzy. It is a lift, you know?
And again, I think to me, what was moreover, the things that I found, like, very clumsy with no effort was, like, the whole, like, Latin American aspect of it.
Oh, yeah, that's
like,
wild, because, like, Anne Rice is trying to show you her real New Orleans. Now, whether or not that's your New Orleans, that's, you know, y'all can have a dialogue about that. When they go to Guatemala, those people don't seem human. I mean, like, seriously.
They're not even there, but it's also, like, her talking about Mayan Empire, and again, not even acknowledging that, like, Mayan culture is still a thing that is like active, that people are
people
still
speak Quechua. Yeah.
Well, and like nobody is named, nobody's described. Like one of the things that got me so much was how like Merrick was like, I can't remember where we went and all this, and then she had to talk to Honey in the Sunshine to like figure out where they went, and Honey in the Sunshine. Honey in the Sunshine said, we went to Guatemala City. Yeah. And I'm like, bitch, you went to Guatemala City. Like, you didn't go to some, like...
We went to a place that was blue and then green and it smelled like vodka. No.
I was like, it had the name of the country
the airport. What the fuck, bitch?
I was like, I'm sorry. It's like, this is ridiculous.
This is like when your husband didn't do the trip planning. And so he's like, where are we going? Is this Central America or South America? And you're like, we're going to Panama, bitch.
But I think what's really interesting about it too is like really indicative of this issue that as a whole that we have in the United States and like in something like within like Latin and South America of like talking about race. So I find that really interesting.
But, absolutely, yeah. And okay, whether or not Anne did it right when she was talking about race in New Orleans, she had obviously thought a lot about it.
Right.
But when she went to Guatemala, she was like, oh, and then there were some natives.
Yeah.
Like she did not think at all about those people as people.
It's just a place of education, and that like she felt it was worth like educating herself about like obviously like the racial politics of New Orleans, but like this idea that all indigenous people, or this idea that indigenous people at all in South America are just rolling up speaking Spanish, you know? Yeah. So it's like that part was very interesting.
Absolutely. I think it is very indicative of like a bias that I'm sure many of us have and that we don't even think about. I don't know. The whole thing is very revealing, and Again,
I felt like this. I felt like she doesn't.
At church, nothing came of the church. Like that, there was you couldn't go through one door of the church without doing a ritual, and then it never came up again. I was waiting for like, okay, well, what? No. It's just like, look at this great custom of the native people.
I'm keeping.
Yeah, we're getting.
We're in the weeds. You're not leaving the house looking like that. Merrick has some fantastic shirt dresses. You can do a belt with that makes you look so fucking hot, yo.
Okay, so I want to dress like the men in this novel. I want David Talbot's tweed suit because. English professor, sure. Or, writing professor.
Hot as hell.
Tweed suit. And then, like, the way that she describes Louis when he dresses up, like Courtney was talking about earlier, like, when he's like in his death garb, I guess.
He, like, does the work. Oh, he's got his velvets. He's got his little pirate. He went to International Mail.
He's got he polished the shoes. He's got the hair.
Woo!
His shoes are all polished. His hair's all curly.
Oh my God.
He
could have done this at any time, by the way. You know what? If he wanted to, he would. If he actually wanted to impress you with his fucking velvet and his little patent leathers, he would have done that. He doesn't love you. Move on.
That's not Louis' vibe. Louis' vibe is like moth-eaten sweaters. Like, that's his whole deal.
I was going to say, like, in the last book we read, it talked about how, like, decrepit his clothes were.
Yes, but he put the work in this time because, if you're going to meet death, you got to come correct.
Here's the thing. I feel like there's something for everybody because my favorite part is when, when Breadbox Lestat finally wakes up, he's like, and he puts on his, like, I always imagine Lestat dressing like, he always dresses like Prince, but not Prince. He dresses like Dave Chappelle's Prince.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole vibe because it's like, I'm awake now. Let me get my velvets. Because the other thing about being about being a vampire is they don't have any, like, they don't sweat, so they can wear whatever they want, no matter what.
But their mouths are, like, fucking clotted, nasty.
Hold on, let me get, but, like, so he's, like, and, like, my favorite part is, like, that Lestat's outer coats are always just, they're elite, but he likes wearing, like, slightly yellowed white shirts underneath, like, with that little bit of age, a la, like, again, playing basketball.
He doesn't want you to think that he's new money. Oh my God, how embarrassing.
Okay, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to talk about this, but I have to talk about the scene, which is when Louis went to say goodbye to Lestat in the thing, you know, like Louis was like, I know I'm gonna like, and it was like in the book, and like there was this description of Louis going and sitting in like next to Lestat's like vacant body pretty much in the chapel with the boombox next to it playing Lestat's music and reading poetry. Do y'all remember this when like David came in and he's like Louis was reading, and I'm just like I'm like, first of all, Louis sitting there reading some boring ass Wordsworth. You know he fucking is, because nobody gives a shit about Wordsworth, and that's what he's doing. But like the cinematic vision of that in my head will not leave, y'all. So it's like it's Lestat in his like aged glory, dusty ass, asleep on the floor.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Burgundy velvet. And Louis is sitting there in like a moth-eaten sweater, like Courtney said, and like his slacks, you know, reading an old fucking Norton anthology or something to this guy. Like,
nothing sexy.
Like I was just like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever read or seen about in my life, but I love it so much. Like I want to see a picture of it.
So fucking on brand. I'm here for
exactly.
Hundo
P. My God.
But I'm not proud.
You know what I have?
Boring ass vampires.
Oh my God. Can you imagine living forever and being like that? Oh my God.
No.
Is that in the world of, if you were going to make, if these vampires were going to be an 80s teen comedy, they're Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Louis is Cameron, and Lestat is obviously Ferris, right? Like,
yeah.
Because that's the thing. He's so uptight, is so but he loves him so much.
And that's the thing. And that's why we keep fucking reading it. That's why we have done this for years now, because we are in it for their dumb fuck love. I mean, that is really what it is. It is their
indeed
They're stupid. Oh my God. We don't even like them anymore. Sorry. Where's your 12-year-old self a dog eat pages? For once in these fucking vampire books, somebody gets laid.
Yeah.
It's sad. You feel bad about it, and you're like, did I just watch my like uncle have sex?
But we did get some good Louis Lestat pining. That was good.
I would not have dog-eared the sex
for
scene
forever.
Yeah, I would not have dog-eared the sex scene. I would have dog-eared the ritual scene and been like, yourself. Like, let me come back later.
So good. It was really intense. It was like legit intense in a good ass way. Oh my God.
What's so funny is my daughter just had her first like sleepover, right? Her first like multiple girl sleepover. And I started thinking about all the ones that I had growing up. And obviously, like, we're talking about like a little bit younger when I was in middle school, but inevitably every single sleepover would end in like a seance / Ouija board / we were legit conjuring the dead. Yeah.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Yes. So that was that part, like, and I think here's the thing. I felt like the whole like ritual scene was super titillating. Like it was like, yes, right. Like it really worked. And I think that's why I like this book so much, because like that shit was like, and it makes me want to read the Wayfarer Witches now, or Mayfair Witches now, because like I was like, well, if this shit happens, like she's doing some stuff in this. Like I was in.
What pairs nicely with the dumpster fire? It's got to be rum. You just got to spit rum through your teeth.
Obviously, it's rum. And she had what was her brand? We'll have to she had a very specific one.
I don't remember.
Oh yeah, it said it in the early in the novel. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say, it did remind me of, so years and years ago, I had a lot of friends in the sociology department here at the University of Mississippi, and they would go on these digs in the summer, like to Belize and deep into Central America. And it was awesome because I never went, but they would go, and they would always bring back the best rum I have ever had in my life. And I'm not even a rum drinker, but they would bring back this rum that if you mixed it, that was anathema, you do not mix the rum. You pour it over ice and you drink it, and it was delicious. And that's what it reminded me of. So it reminded me of the rum from Belize.
That sounds fantastic. Anyway. Let's have rum from Belize.
Let's do it. I know. We got to get somebody to bring it to us.
So this has been your Anne Rice extravaganza for the however many fucking years we have done this. Oh my God.
I love that this always feels one of us. One of us always is by the end of it. So.
Yeah,
it's usually me. I'm so glad. I'm I
think I know.
Usually I'm I'm out, y'all. I'll see you later.
No. Fuck this book. That was me.
Oh, which leads us before we're out. Should a person in the 21st century read this book? No. I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot.
You should read the last 25% of this book. When it gets to the voodoo ritual, that shit is lit.
Even before that, when you have honey in the sunshine.
Okay, so at
again
70%.
Here's the thing, Sarah.
So much does not happen.
Great. So you have your opinion and you have made it known, and then Claire and I can make ours. So, I enjoyed it. I thought that it had a lot more action than some of her other things. I felt like there was the creepy
stuff. It had more
stuff
action than in Armand, where there was a Renaissance happen and people got in a Renaissance fist fight, and then they went to Old Kiev and it smelled.
What happened? In this one, I got possessions. I got go into a excavation where there's a creepy tunnel and a mask that shows you dead people. Yes, I enjoyed it.
I'm for that. No, don't get me wrong. I'm for creepy tunnels and masks.
Anyway, Claire, how did you feel about it?
I really liked it. I think that sometimes we have to I think this shit is really intense now, currently, politically and socially. And so something like this is kind of if you can sort of let go. I don't know. This is my white fucking privilege talking too, a person of color would probably have a really different opinion. But for me, it's it was an easy, that's fun and whatever. Was it perfect? No, it was not. Was it completely woke and well researched? No, it was not. But I think it's fun. And comparatively with her other novels, it's short. So there's that.
Well, I'm really interested to see Pandora for J6, which we have committed to doing.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that. I like Pandora. I think Pandora is really fun. I think Pandora has an outsider perspective. Yeah. I'm fascinated to see what's in Pandora.
Yeah.
So this has been Bodice Tipplers. You can find us at bodicetipplers.com, and happy Halloween.
Bodice Tipplers is part of the Frolic Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts.